The first time it happened it wasn't premeditated. I didn't know that when I opened the door everything would change, but now looking back I realized that destiny began to take shape right there at that exact moment. The doorbell rang on a random afternoon like so many others, but nothing in my life would be the same after that meeting. Laura was on the other side of the door, as always elegant with her hair carefully arranged and a smile that mixed kindness and something else that I still couldn't define. She was carrying a bottle of wine as if she knew I would need it to face what was to come. "Bruno is traveling again, isn't he?" she asked in a casual tone, but her eyes seemed to read my every thought. I could only feel Laura came in and sat on the sofa in the living room as if it were her own home. She always had that way, a security that made me uncomfortable and fascinated. At the same time, for some reason that day her presence seemed different, more intense. The wine flowed, the conversations started, but soon moved away from the banal subjects we used to share. In a short time we were discussing life choices, repressed desires and secrets. It was a dangerous conversation, and deep down I knew that we were getting closer to something that shouldn't be said. "I've always admired your freedom, Laura," I admitted. My voice was lower than usual. "You don't seem to care about what others think. How do you do it?" She gave a small smile, like those who know more than they should. "Anna, life is too short to live according to other people's expectations. Have you ever asked yourself what you really want without thinking about what others think?" she says, her eyes fixed on mine. That question hung in the air like a provocation, and at that moment I realized that something had changed forever between us. The days that followed that meeting were strange to say the least. I couldn't stop thinking about Laura's words, and no matter how hard I tried, something inside me started to grow, a curiosity, a desire that I had never recognized. I loved Bruno, of that I was sure, but at the same time there was something about Laura that moved me in an inexplicable way. She started to appear more frequently, always with some excuse. Bruno didn't seem to notice anything wrong for him. The idea that his mother and his wife were getting closer was comforting, but for me each visit from Laura brought a tension that built up, a tension that I couldn't explain. I knew how to lighten up. One of those afternoons Bruno was away on another one of his long work trips. Laura appeared at the door again, this time without warning. She had only a smile and a sparkle in her eyes that made my stomach turn. "I thought you would like some company," she said, coming in before I could answer. We sat on the couch, and the closeness between us seemed greater than usual. The silence between one conversation and another was heavy, loaded with something that neither of us dared mention. At a certain point, I felt her hand brush lightly mine. Was a casual touch, almost accidental, but the effect on me was instant. My heart raced and my breath caught in my throat. "Have you ever thought about what we talked about the other day?" Laura asked, her voice low, as if she didn't want the silence between us to hear her. I knew what she was talking about, but I couldn't form a coherent answer. My body was torn between guilt and desire, and reason seemed to be a distant echo. I shook my head slightly, without being able to look her in the eyes. "I thought, but I don't know what to do with this," I confessed. Laura leaned slightly closer, and I felt the warmth of her presence. Her eyes stared at me with the intensity that seemed to lay bare all my secrets, all my insecurities. "Sometimes life takes us down paths we never expected," she whispered, her hand now touching mine more firmly. It was a sudden, almost instinctive movement. When my lips touched hers, it wasn't a long kiss, but the intensity of that moment made everything inside me explode. When we pulled away, we were both breathless, and what had once been a respectful friendship had now turned into something much more complex and dangerous. After that day, I couldn't get Laura out of my head. The kiss, the way her words echoed inside me, all of that made me feel alive in a way I had never experienced. At the same time, I knew I was entering dangerous territory. I was married to her son, and no matter how much I tried to convince myself that nothing else would happen, the desire had already been awakened. Laura's visits continued, and each time the tension between us increased. It was as if we were playing a silent game, waiting to see who would be the first to break, and eventually one of us broke. It was on a rainy afternoon, with Bruno once again out of town. I was distracted by the sound of the rain hitting the windows when Laura suddenly appeared without warning, as Always she was more serious than usual, and when she sat down on the couch next to me I realized something was different. "We need to talk, Anna," she said, her voice lower than usual. My heart raced knowing that what she was about to say could change everything that happened between us. "It wasn't a mistake," she started, her eyes fixed on mine, "but she also can't continue." I knew she was right, but at the same time I couldn't accept the desire to continue was stronger than any logical reasoning. "You are my son's wife. If this continues, not only will they hurt Bruno, but they will also hurt us," Laura continued as she looked away for a moment. "I feel a connection with you, Anna, something I never imagined feeling, but this needs to stop." She was being rational, something I couldn't be at that moment. The idea of losing Laura, of never feeling that closeness again, scared me, and before I could stop to think I got closer and kissed her again, this time with more intensity, as if I was fighting against the imminent end. Laura returned the kiss for a few seconds before gently pushing me away. Her expression was one of conflict and pain. "Anna, this has to stop," she said, and without waiting for an answer she got up and left, leaving me alone with the weight of guilt. After Laura left, I sat on the couch paralyzed. My mind was in turmoil. I knew that what we were doing was wrong, but the desire I felt for her wouldn't go away. The kiss still burned on my lips, and the guilt weighed on my chest. The question that swirled in my mind was the same: how did I let this happen? Bruno came back the next day as if nothing had changed. He came into the house, he kissed me like he always did, and started talking about work. He didn't notice what was different about me. How could? The trust he had in me was unshakable, but that only made everything worse. Every time he smiled at me I felt a pang of pain. I had attracted that smile. That man spent days trying to avoid Laura, but fate seemed determined to put me face to face with her. A month later she appeared again, this time without a smile. There was something heavy in the air. "Anna, I need to tell you something." Your voice, I was shaking, something I had never heard from her before. "I can't go on like this. We need to stop seeing each other or this will destroy everything." The reality of her words hit me like a punch. I knew she was right, but part of me still resisted. I still wanted to continue. Laura hugged me before leaving, and I felt that this would be our last contact. She was saying goodbye, and I had to let this happen. In the end, she was stronger than me. "Bruno, I never knew what happened between me and your mother, and maybe it was better this way. What started as curiosity and desire almost destroyed our lives, but I was willing to rebuild it." Laura's memories, however, would remain with me, a secret that I would have to carry forever. If you liked this story and want to hear more exciting stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Your support helps us to continue bringing more intense content like this. Until next time.